Hello and welcome to Tuesdays with Morrissey, where we share insights from great thinkers. I'm Adam Morrissey. Today I'm excited to be joined by Jay Johnston. Jay is the founder of Elite Tech Sales, a company that helps professionals land sales jobs at top companies and get promoted quickly. Jay, thanks for coming on the show.
Thank you for having me, Adam.
Oftentimes, people start companies around problems they solve for themselves. And I think that's true for you at Elite Tech Sales. Can you share a little bit about the problem you solved for yourself that led you to start this company?
Yeah, absolutely. So when I was a college graduate from the University of Kansas, I thought I just wasted $100,000 on a Bachelor of General Studies. And it was weird because I knew I was very ambitious, very driven, but I didn't know how to parlay that talent into anything monetizable. And both my parents, they worked in medical sales with really big companies like Johnston and Abbott Diagnostics. But I went through the interviews with Stryker and a few other companies and just couldn't land a role. And so tech just seemed like the new wave everyone was riding. And I, put my name in the hat multiple times. I think I failed, 50 interviews before finally getting one with Dell. And once I got into Dell, I was able to advance 4 roles in 2.5 years and nearly quadruple my income. And looking back, I was like, why isn't this knowledge like more widely available to college students or people who just want to land a really good job and really monetize their abilities? So yeah, it's definitely serving my shadow. And it's been awesome to make such a big difference in all of our members' lives.
What were the skills that you developed in both the process of striking out 50 times, ultimately landing at at a job at Dell, and then rising so quickly?
Yeah, so I'll give you a contrarian answer. So a lot of people were telling me as I was getting a job, they're like, work hard, work hard, work hard. And I'm like, hey, that's like great advice, but like at some point, like I have to pivot what I'm doing. And so the advice that I landed on through 50 failed interviews is not just work hard, because like that's the common denominator of success in a lot of things, but it's actually work hard and iterate quickly. And so when you think about the process of going into so many interviews and hearing no, or you don't have enough experience, you have to figure out what they're actually saying. And a lot of times, and this is one of my favorite quotes, is when you're just getting started, sometimes your best just isn't good enough. And so you have to find out how to make your best even better. And that's exactly what I had to do when I got started. And so whenever people are really down on themselves, they're like, Jay, it's impossible. I will never land a job with Dell, Oracle, Salesforce, Snowflake, MongoDB, any of those companies. It's not letting a limiting belief continue to serve them and actually break that belief and figure out a way to help people make their best even better. And that was the same exact mindset I carried through each promotion.
Yeah, it reminds me, I think it was Facebook. They said, move fast and break things was one of their mantras. You mentioned limiting beliefs and such. Like, how much do you think like success in sales or any realm is like the tactical skills, which it seems like you are teaching at Elite Tech Sales, but also the mindset?
So I think it's a mix of both. And I also, because I do post quite a bit on LinkedIn and Twitter, those are my 2 main platforms. I see a lot of people post, the frameworks about like, hey, here's, X, Y, and Z for an amazing cold call, or X, Y, and Z for an amazing cold email. And like, let's be real, like in order to be a good seller, like you need to know the fundamentals of like how to do those. But I think where people typically go wrong is they continue to put form over energy. And they're like, oh, well, if I just say these words in this sequence, I'm going to get like an amazing result. But energy typically always beats form whenever like you're trying to get a result, especially like in sales, where like call sales whatever you want, but it's like getting a PhD and just relating with other humans. And so like the best way to really connect with other humans is energetically. So it's not the words I say to you, Adam, it's like how I say them. Like, am I excited about them? And that's where I see a lot of people go wrong when like they're learning how to upskill themselves in sales. And that's what we teach a lot at Elite Tech Sales, is like a lot of you becoming a differentiated candidate is like your energy and your unique value proposition. And we really help people invoke that, not just through the interview process, but also to differentiate themselves in the role once they get into the company to get those rapid promotions.
Yeah, I've seen that also. If I'm calling a prospect or something, if I slow down, they slow down and they have more capacity to engage with me.
I love that. And it works. It totally works. Like, it's also having the confidence. Like, I actually did the same thing when I first started cold calling. I started in Dell headquarters up in Round Rock, and we had maybe like 70 people on the floor. And I remember people cold calling, and they'd be speaking like 100 miles per hour. And I just remember like sitting back. It was like my first week on the floor, and I was just like, okay, from like a consumer standpoint, if someone called me speaking 100 miles per hour, like I would know like they don't have my best interest in hand, like for whatever reason. And so I actually, to your point, like I would always take the opposite approach, and I would just call people in like a slow, laid back tone and just act like I was supposed to be calling them. And it was just like way more human. And they would actually relate to it 10 times more than everyone else who was trying to be someone they weren't. So I totally agree with you.
Yeah, how much what is the age range of the elite tech sales students or candidates or clients?
Yeah, members, we can get fancy with all of our
Yeah,
words.
members, sure, members.
On average, we see people age. Yeah, I'd say it's a good mix of people age 22 to 30. It's a good mix of candidates. We have a lot of people who are top 1% college students who want to land these roles. We have people who've worked at large companies like EY, Deloitte, Red Bull, who really want to make the transition to tech sales and really want to de-risk the fact that they're joining a bad company. And so when they look at someone like myself who's worked at Dell and had success, it's kind of a no-brainer that, okay, this guy's a player and a coach. Typically, people will listen to a podcast I've done. And I even have a ton of free resources because I'm a huge believer that, you shouldn't gate or hold information from people who might be disadvantaged at a certain point of their life. And what I see with job seekers is typically like there can be financial constraints behind like getting a new job. Like, what if you're laid off and you have a family or you had to have a kid and you need to get a new job? Well, the last thing you probably want is to spend a few $1,000s just to get access to, a few templates or a few videos. So it's been a big initiative for us to give away as much value as we can for free. And so we even started a beta community where we can just give, 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 give. And that has established just a ton of camaraderie within the members and just people who are really going after it, who want to make a difference in their lives.
So what is the vision and what is the product of Elite Tech Sales?
So the vision right now is to help the next 10,000 people land their dream job in tech sales. Right now, we're trending in a very good direction to reach that. It actually wouldn't surprise me if we surpass that threshold by the end of the year. A lot of the ways that I look at our indicators, and a little contrarian to how most companies do, is a lot of times people will judge a company based solely off revenue. And while that's like a key metric to keep a business afloat, and like we clearly, have revenue streams and everything, it's a lacking indicator. And so when you look at leading indicators for success in a business, we actually look at how many people are downloading our lead magnets, how many people are joining our community, how many people are engaging, and how much awareness are we getting to the resources we provide. And I strongly believe, and I've had this proven multiple times, that you don't need to pay money to get results. Like I released a free resume template right as I started posting on LinkedIn. I think it's still on my bio. Totally blew up. Had like, I think over like 150 comments and 150 likes like instantaneously. And I got so many downloads on it. And I think the coolest part is I ended up getting, a dozen messages from that lead magnet itself completely free saying, hey, Jay, this is the most beautiful template ever. I actually tried it and I just got two interviews at my dream company. Like, this is amazing. And they didn't pay $1. And so when I operate out of a place of like, how can I give more value? That's how I feel like I'm winning, Elite Tech Sales is winning, and like we're really able to help. I think other people, and everyone's at a different journey, and we get it. Some people they can use all of our resources, have an amazing time, but ultimately they want to pay for the accountability or the coaching or like the tonality of how they speak and deliver because they really want to get that. So that being said, we do offer group coaching, we do offer one-on-one coaching. And then every now and then I'll open up just like a few one-off one-on-one sessions with me, depending on what it is. And then we also work with a career coach who's helped about 300 to 400 executives transition to other roles, which is awesome because they are just brilliant with what it's like to go after those very, very hard management, director, and even C-level roles. So we really help people with the full gauntlet. But ultimately, I love leading with leading indicators and looking at how many people we can impact, whether they spend $1 with us or not.
It's clear when you're sharing that you want to add value to your audiences, whether they result in an immediate financial payoff or not. And that's a huge act of service. Why is it so important to you to help people in this way?
First of all, like on a personal standpoint, like I am very fortunate to have worked with Dell EMC and advanced those 4 roles in 2.5 years and nearly quadruple my income, because that definitely put me in a really good financial position by age 25. And when I started entrepreneurship, I always knew in the back of my head that I have a really good insurance policy. And that's like, if things hit the fan, I can like just go get another job and like I'll be fine. And a lot of people don't have that freedom. And so I think it's a very unique way and to really, come from the frame of how I can help people. I think the other thing that I've learned, because I've always had a passion for like marketing and creating awareness and everything like that, is I see so many people who start like a coaching offer, or there's even these like archaic boot camp models of people who haven't worked in tech sales and want to charge exorbitant amounts just for content or templates. And then to me, it's just not like a good way to operate. Like I've had some experiences through a few leadership seminars I've been at where the concept of win-win has really been reinforced, and like how can you play win-win with everyone in your life. And so when I look at ultimately the impact that I want to have, I don't operate from a frame of like, hey, like you have to give me money in exchange for value. Like I think when you actually play win-win and you trust people and you can lead with that and like your community can see it. And even in our free community, like I'll go in and do a weekly office hours because I'm just obsessed and passionate about helping people. Even if like my time's not scalable and I can only do 1 a week, like that means the world to me to make an impact and like absolutely change the financial trajectory of someone's life. And yeah, like I just see so many people like I said in the coaching industry, like they fail because they'll hop on a call with me to get advice and like, hey, like how do I do this? How do I do that? And I'm like, will give all your knowledge away for free. Like if people see that you give away your best knowledge for free, they will pay for the accountability and the coaching if they need it. But for a lot of people, they don't. And like whether they do or not, like you're creating fans of your brand. And to me, like that's like an infinite return. And so I think like, how can I play in decades instead of years? And that's like what drives me in order to make such a big impact with what we're doing.
Yeah, I think you allude to something really interesting, especially in this age of like internet authority and templates and coaching. I'm a big believer in business as an agent for personal growth and change. It's a great way to gain discipline. It's a great way to gain confidence, and it's a great way to change your trajectory in life. So I really appreciate what you're doing because I think it hits on all those points.
Yeah, no, and I definitely did not like, I want to be transparent with the audience. Like this is something that was learned over time. Like I don't think a lot of business is taught that way because business is typically taught from the indicator of like revenue. But trust me, like the more I focus on like leading indicators, awareness and impact, like the more things come back to me in just like the most wild ways. And like, that's not even why I'm doing it. But it's just been so cool to see like when you actually live with the flow of life and the flow of giving and wanting to help people, it rewards you in so many amazing ways.
Yeah, how is it? I mean, you were selling cloud storage, right? To really, really oversimplify it.
I mean, it was, on-premise storage. I know all my Dell EMC people out
Sure.
there will, throw in a few asterisks. But yeah, like simply like we were offering the cloud experience on premise.
Nice. There's a lot to unpack there, but what's it been like in internet businesses, solopreneurship, like all the rage? Obviously, you're building a team, so it's not solopreneurship. What has been like the journey like for you to build an online company?
Yeah, well, it has been a journey, so I will acknowledge that. And I'll never forget when I first started, and I was copywriting, I was posting on LinkedIn, I was posting on Twitter and following all these really cool accounts, like Justin Welsh, Karen Drew, and Sahil Bloom, all these like, major stars in the area or major profiles. And a lot of the stuff I would see would always fantasize about, the solopreneurship or like building the company. And I remember taking that to heart and like really leaning into it. And that actually resulted in me taking a pretty, yeah, extended trip outside the US to Mexico City and Colombia. And I'll never forget getting, one of my first online sales. Like literally, I was just like walking in the street, like running a discount or something. And someone just like purchased, and I saw like something pop up in my Stripe account. I'm like, oh my gosh, like this is amazing. And it was about 5 minutes after I was like, wow, this is also like one of the least fulfilling things ever. And what happened in that 5 minutes is I realized like money is never going to make you happy. Like no matter what people sell you in terms of living abroad and like doing online businesses and internet Wi-Fi money, like however people define it nowadays, like I actually realized that doesn't fill up my cup as much as community and like actually building a team of people I'm very passionate about working with. And even having a community like we have here in Austin, where it's a lot of people who are really oriented towards like, how can I lift other people up? How can I fill up other people's cups? And when I really, got out of the solopreneurship mindset and I started building a team and I started connecting with the community more and really just like helping other entrepreneurs, build their company, like it actually ended up getting more satisfaction in my life than being this nomadic entrepreneur who's traveling and working at fancy WeWorks and having Airbnbs. So it's definitely been a journey, but I do completely agree. Like entrepreneurship is a game of self-development in a lot of ways. And having a really good community around you, like as you build a company, has yielded the highest return that I can't even put into a dollar amount.
Talk a little bit about your process. I really love what you said around thinking in decades versus days. What does that look like for you from like a practical application standpoint?
Yeah. So funny enough, this is advice. Like I was just giving this advice to one of my friends.
Given or giving?
I was giving this advice to
Got it.
someone the
Cool.
other night, and they asked for feedback. They were open to it, and it's a marketing concept a lot of people don't internalize when they're building their offer. And my friend, he has a very big fitness brand, and was dealing with like a few different issues with getting the lead acquisition and all these other things I won't go into. But um, essentially, what it came down to is he wasn't giving enough value. And when you're starting a business, like typically a lot of people don't really like know you when you're getting started. And so the concept that I was explaining to him is you need to be obsessed about creating flow before you add any friction. And so when you're playing in decades and you're like, okay, I want to build the most awareness and create the most flow, it's like, sweet, like have an irresistible offer, like get people in the door. Like for him, I'm like, hey, like you have all these assets, like give 50% off your first order and a $300 workout plan for 10 weeks that you can give them for free custom. Like create massive flow before you add friction. And so when you think about that, it's like a few things happen. Like you're creating more awareness of what you're doing, and like awareness is the ultimate key to create impact. If you have an irresistible offer, you get to the second A, which is adoption. And then if people adopt the product and they love it, then they become walking, salespeople for you. Yeah, advocates. So it's like when you hit the 3 A's of marketing and you're not trying to do it all overnight and for a $10,000 price point day one, that's like the epitome of like playing in decades over days. Is like you understand that there are billions of people out there in the world that you can affect. And like if you come into this game of business with a greedy mindset, like I'm going to take everyone for their money for day one, I typically see that being like a losing formula. And so for me, it's just felt better to be like, how can I create the most flow and the most awareness and the most adoption and the most advocacy now that's going to serve me the most over the next few decades. And even with a lot of the ways that I run the company from an operational standpoint, like one of my superpowers at Dell is, I was able to overachieve a lot of my numbers working very few hours a week. And it took time, but I was, there for about 4 years. I take the same approach to, how I, keep up to date with all the softwares that we use internally. Like I'm able to bootstrap everything. Like I don't have to go to a startup and ask for tens, hundreds of thousands of dollars. Like I believe like when you really are playing in decades instead of days, like you're able to do things the right way with integrity and like really have other people's best interest at hand, instead of, coming from a different frame of, hey, like we're going to do things with a heavy price tag, a slow cash conversion rate, and just like cause a lot of unnecessary headaches. So yeah, that's like my mindset with, playing the game the way I want to play it.
Yeah, Steve Jobs said we overestimate what we can do in 1 year, and we underestimate what we can do in a decade. And I think that's really true. One of my personal practices, I have this 70-year planning template, and I've mapped out all my goals across my 6 aspects of life. So like financial, physical, vocational, creative, spiritual, and relational across 70 years. And it is amazing when you do that. You just realize how much time you have.
Yeah, I agree. And I love that you say that, because a lot of times, like even members who come in that have like a narrative that they can't land a job at a company or like something like that, like it's a really simple exercise. It's like, okay, well, if you're telling yourself that you can't land your dream role, like that's the perception you're creating. And it's like you can always create an empowering perception of any event, like Viktor Frankl, Man's Search for Meaning, talks a lot about. And I think Alex Hormozy says it best, but it's like, if you have a story that doesn't serve you, like just drop it. Like you don't have to hold on to it. And like that's like the beauty of life, is you'd never have to hold on to a story you hold about yourself that has a negative connotation. Like you are always in 100% control to create that empowering narrative to lift yourself up to any level of success you want to achieve at any time horizon.
What lit your spark? Like, did you have mentors? Did you read certain things? Like, what lit your spark around meaning, significance, long-term thinking, and purpose?
From a young age, I've always been highly oriented towards self-expression. And you could look back at a lot of my friends and they would tell you I was always the one to do things just like a little differently. Like, I remember in middle school, like I showed up one day with a mohawk with my head shaved and it was like dyed blonde in the middle. Or even like growing up in Kansas City, everyone went to state college, and like I randomly decided to go to the University of Arizona. And I've just had like so many things like that happen in my life. And then even when I was working at Dell, making like great money and everything, like I literally like decided to like start a company. Like I've always just kind of done things a little different. And so I have a huge knack for self-expression. I think it's the ultimate gift you can give to the world. And yeah, like I feel like there were times where I lost touch with that. And then I had a few experiences where I really connected with, being my authentic self. And when I was able to reinvigorate the impact I can make when I'm really aligned with, my words, the way of being that I want to, bring to the world and everything, it just hit me. I'm like, we all have so many superpowers to give to the world in so many different ways, shapes, and forms. And so when I got connected with that feeling again, it felt really natural to get into entrepreneurship and like, okay, well, I've always done things a little differently. So why not focus on things a little differently? Like everyone else is focusing on revenue, I'm focusing on impact, and things like that just light me up. And um, yeah, it's hard to say. Like it's always just been a part of me, and I think even nowadays, like I've been crazy about copywriting. I think like I said, on LinkedIn and Twitter, and I used to get down on myself when I was first starting. I was analysis paralysis. I needed to be perfect, and funny enough, like my best posts are typically when I'm just authentically myself. Even like some of my best podcasts where I get members who are like, hey, like I don't know what you charge for coaching, but like I'll pay you whatever the cost is. I just really like your energy. Like that means the most to me because I never try to put on a facade. I just really want to connect with people with like who I am and like what value I can bring to the world. And while it's great that I do it and I'm happy that I have the platform to, that's actually the same challenge I propose to everyone that I work with or get in touch with is like, hey, like you have the same power within you. Like you want to get into tech sales or you want to do whatever you want with your life. Like your biggest superpower is always going to be doing it like in your voice, your tonality, your energy. And so that's just something that I really try to invoke out of myself and everyone I come in contact with, because we all have so many gifts to provide to each other. But if you're too scared or too timid to ever do that, like, the world's going to be deprived of seeing your gifts, which I think is a fatal tragedy.
Yeah, there's I think you're really hitting on something I think a lot about. I don't think people fundamentally want to live forever. I think people want to live their amount of time fully expressed.
Mm.
I think people want connection and freedom, and a big part of freedom is freedom of expression, and people want to live unencumbered. So it's fun to me that you're doing this thing around tech sales, but it's really about human potential, human freedom, and agency.
Hmm. I couldn't agree more. And I know you're an amazing reader, Adam. I've had the pleasure to see your book collection, which I think is nothing short of amazing. And um, I know from my reading as well, I've read so many things about the top regrets of the dying, and typically the inability to express yourself the way you want to is typically up there on the list. And so I think it's really powerful, for anyone watching this to realize that you don't you don't need to be an artist. Like you don't have to paint canvases like the beautiful ones behind you, or you don't have to be a rock star in a band. Like all creativity and self-expression is just done by a thinking mind. That's a quote by Ayn Rand. All creativity is done by a thinking mind. And when I really internalized that, like, and I did early in my career, like it was the way I would approach my sales job at the time, is like I would be very witty, creative, and like in my own tonality and energy while doing things. And that's just a fundamental skill of life, to be happy doing whatever you want, whenever you want. So yeah, huge advocate of self-expression.
Yeah, another one on creativity I've heard is the creative one is the one who acts before the idea becomes dormant in their mind.
Mm.
You're going to get insights, you're going to get inspirations, and if you don't act on them, sometimes they'll fade. And certainly the good things, and I think some real ones around true calling, circle back around. You mentioned that for a period of time you lost full self-expression,
Mm-hmm.
and it came back.
It did, yeah.
Well, Jay, you've been really gracious with your time. What's the best way for people to keep up with you in elite tech sales?
Yeah. So go to our website, elitetechsales.com, join our free community. We have a ton of free resources there, work with a really amazing producer here in Austin, Texas. We do multiple camera angles, 4K shooting, amazing video edits, and then a ton of done-for-you templates in our community, where I also host weekly office hours, 100% free. And on our website, we have like blogs, access to free resources. And so elitetechsales.com is the best. And if you want to connect on social media, we have all my links and URLs posted on the website. And so if we're able to link that URL at the bottom of the podcast, that is the easiest way to get a hold of me. And yes, no matter what you see online, I actually do respond to all my emails personally. So if you join our newsletter, join our community, you'll have full access to myself. And truthfully, like if I can help you land a tech sales job and you never pay me $1, that is 100% fine with me. My goal is to help elevate people, and it's the most rewarding thing in the world.
Well, we'll definitely link to the Elite Tech Sales website in the show notes. You're a gift to anyone who crosses your path. Thanks for coming on the show, Jay.
Awesome. And thank you, Adam. I keep up with all your podcasts and your mission, and can't thank you enough for all the great work you're doing.
Thank you for listening to Tuesdays Morrissey. That conversation was with Jay Johnston. Jay is the founder of Elite Tech Sales, a company that helps professionals land sales jobs at top companies and get promoted quickly. What I enjoyed about the episode was Jay's emphasis on impact and long-term thinking. I think there's a lot we can learn about how his company is oriented to help people unlock new levels of human freedom and human potential. If you enjoyed the episode, share it with a friend, and we'll see you here soon. Thanks.